Hello and welcome to Idiotsplaining, the podcast where I take you on a wild ride through the wacky, wonderful and sometimes downright weird world of, well, everything. Today we're diving into the greatest show on earth, the Olympics. Whether you're a sports fan, a history buff or someone who just enjoys a good laugh, then this episode's for you. So lace up those metaphorical running shoes and let's Idiotsplain the Olympics. Alright then, starting off with a bit of history. The Olympics, as we know them, began in ancient Greece in 776 BC. I mean, this is going to be the oldest that we're ever going to do, probably. And no, that doesn't stand for before coffee. Although I'm sure those athletes could have used some caffeine. These were held in Olympia, hence the name, and were as much as a religious festival as a sporting event. Athletes competed for the honour of their city-states and a little thing called a laurel wreath. You'd think they could at least get a medal after running a marathon, right? But nope, just some leaves on their head. Now these games were originally a one-day event with a single foot race. I mean, can't you imagine? People travelled from all over Greece to watch a bunch of dudes running for a few minutes. But things quickly escalated. Over time they added more events like wrestling, boxing and chariot racing. It was like they said, hey, running is fun, but what if we threw some punches and horses into the mix? And boy did that work out. By 472 BC, the games had expanded to 5 days. Think of it as the ancient version of binge watching your favourite series, except with more sweating and a few plot lines. And here's a fun tidbit. These games were strictly male only, and athletes competed in the nude. Yep, in the buff. Could you imagine the commentary today? Looking aerodynamics and free-spirited. Meanwhile, women had their own games called the
Heraean
Games, named after Hera, Zeus's wife. But these were way less famous because apparently ancient Greeks thought men running naked was way more entertaining. The ancient Olympics ran for nearly 12 centuries until a Roman emperor named
Theodosius I,
who was not a fan of fun, banned them in AD 393. Fast forward to 1896 and a French guy named
Pierre de Coubertin
decided it was high time to bring them back. Thus, the modern Olympics were born in Athens, and thank goodness they brought clothes into the equation this time. I don't think the world was ready for a return to the bare necessities. Now let's talk about some of the crazy events that have been part of the Olympics, both past and present. Now, we know about the big ones like swimming and gymnastics and track and field, but did you know poetry and painting was involved? That's right, from 1912 to 1948, the Olympics awarded medals for arts like literature, music, painting and sculpture. Can you imagine getting a gold for writing a haiku? 5 syllables here, 7 there, I win gold. Call me poet champ. Then there were the tug-of-war competitions. These events were part of the Olympics from the 1900s to 1920 and was exactly like it sounded. 2 teams pulled on opposite ends of a rope until one team dragged the other across a line. Simple, yet incredibly tense. Could you picture modern athletes like Usain Bolt or Michael Phelps competing in tug-of-war? That's a crossover event I'd pay to see. And who could forget the bizarre event of live pigeon shooting in the 1900s Paris Games? Participants competed to see who could shoot the most pigeons. Unsurprisingly, this event didn't last very long. They were replaced by the more humane clay pigeon shooting because, you know, clay pigeons don't poop on your car. In the present day, we have some equally fascinating and odd events. Take the sport of race walking, for example. It's like running, but with a rule that one foot must be in contact with the ground at all times. It's surprisingly difficult and often results in some hilarious wobbly strides. And then there's trampolining, an Olympic event where athletes bounce on a trampoline and perform gravity-defying flips and twists. I'd say it's the closest we'll get to Olympic level bed jumping. Of course, if you don't already know by the way I speak, I'm British, so of course I need to go over our history in the Olympics. Apologies if you live elsewhere, this might take a couple minutes. Great Britain has a rich history in the Olympic Games, consistently ranking among the top nations in terms of medal count. The country's Olympic journey began in 1896 at the first modern Games in Athens, when they won 2 gold medals. Since then, Great Britain has participated in every Summer Olympics, except for the one in 1980 with the Moscow Games. They were boycotted that year. Over the years, though, British athletes have excelled in various disciplines, securing their place as one of the more dominant forces in the Olympics. The nation's athletes have particularly shined in sports such as rowing, cycling, athletics, and sailing. One of the more noticeable periods in Great Britain's Olympic history was the 2012 London Games. Of course, the host nation, Team GB, delivered a spectacular performance, finishing 3rd in the medal table. 65 medals, including 29 gold. The achievement, however, did mark their best performance in over a century, second only to the 1908 London Games, where they topped the medal table. The success of the 2012 Games was attributed to significant investment in sports and athlete development, as well as the home advantage that spurred British athletes to new heights. In more recent times, Great Britain's success has continued, particularly in the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics. Team GB's finished 2nd in the medal table, an unprecedented achievement for the nation in a non-home games. Secured 67 medals, including 27 golds, showcasing the depth and breadth of British talent. Key contributors to this success were athletes like Mo Farah in distance running, the cycling team led by Sir Bradley Wiggins and Laura Trott, and the gymnastics team, which saw standout performances from Max Whitlock. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics were held in 2021, thanks COVID, further cemented Great Britain's status as an Olympic powerhouse. Despite the challenges posed by the global pandemic, Team GB matched their medal tally from the 2012 Olympics, winning 65 medals and finishing 4th. The consistency over multiple Olympic cycles highlights the effectiveness of the UK's long-term sports strategy and the dedication of its athletes. With each Olympic year, Great Britain continues to build on its storied legacy, inspiring future generations of athletes to aim for the highest honours on the world stage, just not first. Now let's dive into some of those strange stories and controversies that have surrounded the Olympics over the years. The Olympics have always been a hotbed for drama, both on and off the field. Take for instance the story of Jim Thorpe. In 1912 he won 2 gold medals in the decathlon and pentathlon, only to have them stripped away because he played semi-professional baseball. It took 70 years for the Olympic Committee to realise their mistake and reinstated his medals after he died. Talk about a belated oops are bad. Then there's the tale of the marathon at the 1904 St. Louis Olympics. This event was a disaster from start to finish. The course was dusty and hot, there was barely any water stations, and one competitor, Felix, stopped mid-race to eat some rotten apples, leading to a stomachache. But the crown jewel of the fiasco was Fred Laws, who hitched a ride in a car for part of the race, then jogged across the finish line waving to the crowd. Needless to say, he was disqualified, but not before nearly getting away with it. And who can forget the infamous 1972 Munich Olympics? Are we really going to talk about this one? Like, is this not going to just bring the whole thing down? Or... All right, I'll talk about it. The tragic events saw the Palestinian terrorist group Black September take 11 Israeli athletes hostage, leading to a tragic end. The incident cast a dark shadow over the Games and led to heightened security measures in all subsequent Olympics. It was a stark reminder that even the most joyous occasions can be marred by violence. Oh, and then there was the Russian doping scandal in 2015. It was revealed that Russia had been running a state-sponsored doping program, leading to numerous athletes being banned and the country being barred from competing under its flag in some instances. It was a real-life version of a spy thriller, complete with secret labs and whistleblowers. The fallout of the scandal is still being felt today, with ongoing debates about fairness and integrity in sports. Alrighty, it's time for my favourite part of the show, the Q&A section. Right, what questions have you got for me this time? First up, what's the weirdest Olympic sport you've ever heard of? Well, that's a tough one, because there are so many contenders for this, but I'd have to say one of the weirdest, the aforementioned live pigeon shooting from the 1900s. I mean, who thought it'd be a good idea to have a bunch of people with guns shoot at birds in the middle of a sports event? Thankfully they switched to the clay pigeons, sparing us from potential bird-related disasters. Next up, how do athletes get chosen to compete in the Olympics? Fantastic question. Well, it varies by sport, but generally athletes must qualify through competitions and trials held in their respective countries. They need to meet specific standards to compete against their fellow countrymen for a spot on the team. It's a rigorous process that requires not only talent but also dedication, a slight bit of luck. Next question, have there been any animal participants in the Olympics? Well, technically, yes. In the early modern Olympics, there were equestrian sports which involved horses, obviously. And then there's the pigeon shooting event, like we mentioned earlier. But then again, the pigeons didn't really sign up for that one. Other than that, the Olympics have primarily been a human-only affair, unless you count mascots. They're just people in funny costumes. Finally, what's the deal with the Olympic flame? Well, the Olympic flame is a tradition that dates back to the ancient Greek Olympics, when a sacred flame was kept burning throughout the games. In modern times, the flame is lit in Olympia, Greece, and then relayed by torchbearers to the host city, symbolizing the continuity between the ancient and modern games. It's a powerful symbol of unity, peace, and the enduring spirit of competition. And that's it. We've crossed the finish line, but no medal. Let's be honest, the Olympics is like a glorified sports day. I'll be back next week for the bonus bits and the week after for another episode. In the meantime, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you may find me, at Ross Hoare. That's Ross and Hoare. Why not send me suggestions of things to Idiotsplain on the platforms, or contact me at rosshoare.com. I'll be announcing the next episode's topic on the socials and in the bonus podcast next week. Once announced, I'll want your questions and you could be featured in the episode. The music of this podcast was stolen, borrowed from Incompetech and Streambeats. The Incompetech track is called Werq, spelled Werq. Everything you need to know is down in the description. This is an independent podcast created by myself, so thank you for supporting small creators. If you enjoyed this, there's still time for me to nab a Listener Choice Award at the British Podcast Awards. So go to britishpodcastawards.com/voting, search for Idiotsplaining and follow the instructions. One last thing, if you live somewhere that's a decent time to wake up early, then why not listen to the Radio Focus and Breakfast Show with me, Ross Hoare, every weekday and Saturday morning from 7 AM UK time. You can check out how to listen and various other things, including visiting the What's On guide, checking out the 24/7 schedule, and getting involved with groups at radiofolkston.com. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you liked it, be sure to follow or subscribe so you get the next episode when it becomes available. And I'll see you next time.